What's up guys, welcome to my guide to getting started with Weak Auras 2, the add-on in World of Warcraft. Now in this guide I intend to, and hope to, show you how to create and customize your very own Weak Auras on a basic level for basic purposes like tracking buffs, debuffs, cooldowns, spell duration, and so on. Now I do want to preface this whole thing by saying I'm not an expert at all in Weak Auras 2. I just use the add-on and I do not know all the awesome and powerful things you can do with it or how to do them. You can do some really incredible things, but that is not really the purpose of this guide. It's more of an easy new people into this add-on if you're new to it, you haven't tried it out yet, or you want to see where more the customizable options are and then play around with those yourself. So in that vein, I'm going to be showing you where all the options are and kind of describing stuff, and then just show you some examples of Weak Auras I make for my characters in the game as well as for my other videos. So first, how do you open the add-on? Once you download it, open your chat box, type /WA for Weak Auras, and it will open in this options menu. Now I've got some stuff over here already because I have Weak Auras that I use, but normally it'll be blank if you're new to this. Now you got a couple options here. You got from template, which has some very basic formats that Weak Auras has. Generally, you'll probably not use this because you want to customize your own stuff. Now, you also have the import, and I'm just going to briefly mention this so you know how to import if you're borrowing from somebody else's Weak Auras. So say you see someone's, you're like, hey, I really like that. Can I have your Weak Auras string or whatever you want to call it? And they'll say sure, and they'll send you this long list of text and different things you can type on your keyboard, and you're going to copy that big string, click on import, then paste it here, click done, and then you have a new Weak Auras. So that's how you import. Now how do you export if somebody asks you, like, hey, your Weak Aura is really cool, can I have it? You'll right click on the one over here that you've created, and then click export to string, which highlights all this mess, and you copy that, click done, and then you paste it over to them so that they can have it. So that's importing and exporting for other people. Very simple. Now you'll notice there are actually a lot of options here. Now of these options, you've got progress texture, model, text, icon, and progress bar. Group and dynamic group I'll mention briefly at the end, but they're not actually Weak Aura options. They're more of grouping different Weak Auras together in various ways. So before we get into the differences between everything, I do want to go over some universal options. So let's start with texture here. And you'll notice there's 5 tabs, and all Weak Auras have these 5 tabs. You have your display, your trigger, your load, your actions, and your animations. Now, of these 5, 4 of them are the exact same for every type of Weak Aura. That means no matter what you're picking, your trigger will look the same, your load looks the same, your actions look the same, and so on. The only thing that really changes is display. So I'll start by going over these 4 universally similar options between all the Weak Auras, and then get into the differences between each of the displays. So first up is the trigger. Now the trigger is probably the most important part of your Weak Aura, and it tells your add-on basically when should this Weak Aura pop up, when should it activate. And so the easiest way to do it, and the most common way you're going to be using it, is by clicking this red button called Apply Template. Click on it, and it brings up this list that is broken down into sections, and you can click on those and expand the list. And it's broken down by class and spec, which you can change up here in these drop-down menus. So it defaults to what you are currently on, but you can change it so you don't have to switch tunes to edit a Weak Aura for another class, for example. So they're split into buffs, debuffs, cooldowns, your honor talents, which will come at level 110, and then resources, and for druid shapeshift form. So just click on whatever you like. There's some general options as well, and then racials and enchants, legendaries, and tier set bonuses. So you can pick whatever you like. Now one note I want to make is that sometimes things that are in buffs or debuffs you may also find in cooldowns. Now the difference is things in buffs or debuffs will be tracking the buff or debuff itself. So for example, the timer on a buff like, let's say, Bristling Fur. So Bristling Fur is a talent for Guardian Druids. It lasts 8 seconds with the 40-second cooldown. If you take it from the buff section, it will give you and you track the duration, it'll give you the 8-second duration. So it'll show you how long it's active, and then when it's gone, it will disappear. If you take it from the cooldowns, it will start once you cast it, and then it'll just count the cooldown up until it's ready again. And so they're a little different, so make sure you're picking the correct version of the spells you want, just so you know what you're getting into, whether you want to track like how long something is active or when it's back off cooldown. So that is the trigger. Now once you pick something, we'll just click Bristling Fur, why not? You get two options here, replace all the triggers or add a new one. So replacing is what you'll use most of the time because I like to have just simple one trigger weak auras. But if you're doing multiple triggers per weak aura, then you can add it so you don't overwrite what you already have here, but normally I'll just replace it. And then after you do that, it just fills in everything for you and you're actually good to go off of this tab. There's a bunch of options here. I'll get into just a little bit, but you see that it marks everything. It picks the aura name for you, the ID, the unit it's on, which is you, what is it, a buff or debuff kind of thing. And so you have that. And so that's how you pick most of your triggers. You just go through the apply template button, find it in the correct section, and then click on it and either replace the triggers if you just want to have a simple one like I do, or if you want to do some complexity, you can add the trigger instead. Now what happens if you can't find the thing in the apply template box? Like if you just can't find it there, you can do it manually. And so I'll just go through the options very briefly here. So you have first the type of trigger. Now aura includes buffs and debuffs, as you can see here, and you just pick those in this drop down menu, and then you can pick who it's on. So you want it on your target for like enemies, so you want it on player, which is yourself, focus group, etc. And you can name a specific unit or something if you like. Then of course you need to find either the name of the spell or aura or the spell ID through a third-party website like Wowhead or wherever else you might find that. And then at the bottom you can choose things like, do you want it to activate when there's a certain amount of time remaining, at a certain stat count? Do you want only yours to show up, so things that you've cast? And then you can inverse it so that it shows up when the aura is not active rather than when it is. These are all options you can mess around with. Now the options are actually pretty similar for all the rest of these, but you can change the type of trigger. You can go to events, and you can check out stuff like different messages, cooldowns being ready, combat log, and you can mess around with options here. There's a lot of options, so it'll let you play around with those yourself, and then pick stuff like who cast it, what's the name of the person that cast it, etc., etc. One note that's cool here, you can choose when to hide the weak aura after a certain time if you like, which is pretty cool as well. Then we've got status, and this type of trigger, again, it's got a lot of options, so things from like health, Death Knight runes, global cooldowns, cooldown progress, things like that, and you can play around with it. Who is it from, at a certain health, if you're using health, and they all have their own options, of course. So you can definitely mess around with this with a different type of trigger, but again, the easiest way is to just find the appropriate template for what you're looking for. So that's pretty much the trigger tab, and as the last thing, if you want to do multiples, you can just click add trigger, and then you get a couple options here. What activates it? Do you want all your triggers to be active in order to make the weak aura actually pop up, or do you just want any one of them being satisfied, the conditions being satisfied to like trigger it, or you can customize it. And then where do you get dynamic information like timers and stacks that updates, and you can choose whether, how that pops up. So that's your trigger tab. Now, the load tab is very, very simple. It just tells your weak aura when do you want it to be loaded. And if you notice on the left here, there's two sections. There's loaded and not loaded. And so you can choose things like your toon name, your realm, the class, or multiple classes. Same with specs. You can do single or multiple. And just tells your weak auras when do you want to put this in the loaded section and load it up per toon. Saves some space, of course, if you're not loading a bunch of stuff. And if you're like me and you do a lot of classes and have a lot of weak auras, as you can see here, you probably don't want to go through all of these every time you want to edit some for just one class or spec, because it's a pain in the butt. So, pretty simple, you just check whatever you want here. You can do anything that's on here and type in where you want it to activate or load. And that's the load tab. Now for actions, this is just cool stuff you can do when weak auras pop up or when they hide. The on show section is when the weak aura shows up. What do you want to happen? You can do chat messages in different chats, like combat text, guild, instance, so on. And you can type the message. You can play sounds. You can either customize or you can, pick a preset like this air horn that you just heard, and what sound channel and so on. You can do button glows. You can customize stuff. And then you have the same stuff for on hide. So if you wanted to happen or play a message or sound when the aura is gone, then you would do it under the on hide section here. Same options though as the on show. Finally, we've got the animations tab. Now the animations tab is pretty simple. You've got 3 drop-down menus here, and you can do animations with the weak auras on the start of it, while it's active, and when it finishes its duration. So you can customize it, of course, with a bunch of options that you can play around with, or you could preset. Just choose a preset. You can do things like bounce, fade out, sliding from left to right or bottom, or anything like that. So whatever suits your needs and fancy. So those are the 4 universal tabs. Now I'll get into the differences in each of the displays on the weak auras, on the different types of weak auras. Now first up, we are in texture right now, and this is one of the ones I do use a lot. For texture, you've got a bunch of options here. Main one is, of course, you want to choose what texture you are picking from. And you've got the blizzard ones, so blizzard alerts that you might have seen in game just by default. You can pick from this drop-down menu up top. There's a bunch of different options. I use a lot of power auras because I used to use this add-on a lot, so it just feels comfortable to me. But you can pick whatever design you like. You've got icons, words, PvP emblems. You can pick whatever you like. So once you pick that, you just hit OK, and you leave it there. You got options like the saturating, just take out some color, change the color, blend mode. Do you want it to glow or be opaque? Full rotation, if you want it to spin around in a certain angle, you can choose anything from 0 to 360 degrees. If you unclick it, it does seem to get bigger, and I do normally have this unchecked just because I like the normal size of it, but then you only rotate it in multiples of 90 degrees. Then you do things like change your width and height, however big you want it. You can anchor it differently, but normally I'll just move it instead. You can either type in different X and Y offsets, so X being left and right, Y being up and down, or you can just click and drag it to move it wherever you like. And then the frame shader I don't play with, just leave it as is. So that's textures. Pretty simple. Pick a texture, move it around, customize it as you like. Now the next type of weak aura that I use a lot is actually something I use in conjunction with texture, which is text. Now text, you see you actually create text, and you can just type whatever you like here, like hello, and then click accept, this red button, and it will literally just say hello. So you can type whatever you want, but if you want dynamic information from this text, which is what I like to use it for, you see that you've got these little codes here, and if you mouse over the little box where you type your text in, you see this menu that pops up and lets you know what you can type in to change this text to a dynamic format. Now, the most common one is %P, and what that does is it tracks the remaining time on whatever you're tracking, whether it's a cooldown, so the time remaining on the cooldown, or you could do the duration of a buff or debuff, and so on. T, the %T, does the maximum duration, which I don't really find that useful, but it is there if you need that for some reason. N gives you the name of whatever you're tracking, whatever spell you're tracking. I just shows the icon of the spell that you are tracking, and then S is the other one that I use a lot, and it shows how many stacks of whatever buff, debuff, cooldown spell, whatever that it has at the time. So the most that I use is P and S for stacks and timers, but you pick whatever you need, and you can do multiples, and you can even do like different lines here. So maybe I'll put S down here and the icon down here or something, and you'll see now we have multiple lines, or you can do it all in the same line if you like as well. So now I can have stacks and timers in the same line. So play with it as you like, but you can either do dynamic text or just regular text that doesn't change. And then after that, you can choose options like how many decimal points. I haven't played with dynamic, so I don't know what they are, but I'll leave that as is. And then justify it, you can change the text color on this little color wheel here. And then you can change the font size, outline style, and then, of course, anchor or move it, which is what I prefer to do, is click and drag, or type in X and Y coordinates. And then frame shadow, again, I leave alone. So that's text. It's pretty useful. I like to use it in conjunction with indicators or textures, because the texture shows this nice big thing where I'm like, oh, something's happening, and then I can briefly check the timer or the text to see like, oh, how many stacks do I have, how much time do I have left. So they work really, really well together. Now, the next one I use most often is icon. An icon will create, as its name implies, like an icon right here. And so you've got options here like text on it, which is quite important. You can choose what text you have on it, and again, you can write whatever you like. You can't do multiple lines, like you can't hit enter and have it go down a line, but you can do multiple things here. So right now it defaults to stacks, so maybe you want the timer, or maybe you want both. You can have multiples, and you see now I have two things written there. Of course, you can change your text position, the text color, the color of the icon itself. You can change the icon to whatever you like. If you don't want it to be automatic, then you can choose one here. Click the choose button, type in a spell or, I don't know, let's say shields. And the more you type, they'll just pick everything that has the name shield, something like that. You can click it if you want to pick your own. Normally, I just leave it on automatic though. And then things like timer precision, the fonts, outline size, you can zoom in on the icon if you like, and other things like that. Then change the width and height, of course, to what you want it to be, and you can use anchors to move it, or you can just, again, type in X or Y coordinates, or just click and drag it around. I leave frame spreader alone because I don't know what it does, and that's pretty much it for icons. So you can also, one little mention, you can move the text outside the box if you want, if you like that better. So there are a lot of options you can mess around with here. Now, next up, we've got some that I don't really use that often, but I will go over them kind of briefly just to show you what they're all about. The first one is progress texture. It's basically two textures in one. And what it does is, as you can see, it kind of drains out, or the first one changes to kind of show you a timer or something without using numbers. Kind of a cool, pretty effect, but I don't really use it that often. So you got options here. Of course, you can choose your texture. You can uncheck same if you want to have a different texture behind it, like so. But generally, it looks better if you have the same. Of course, you can mirror it left and right, or desaturate it, take out some of the color, and then just change the background offsets and make it slightly bigger versus the front one. And then, of course, you've got your glow and opaque for bright or just regular. Then you can pick your colors of your first one. Foreground is your first texture, the one that changes, and the background color is the one that doesn't change. It's the one that's left after the foreground goes away. Change the orientation of it, right to left, anti-clockwise, right to left, top to bottom, whatever you like. And you can make it fill up and such if you inverse it. So if you inverse it, it actually fills up rather than draining out. And then you can change where you move it, X and Y. You can crop it to be a little bit smaller. You can change the alpha, see how well you can see it, and you can rotate it around in a circle, however you like. Then, of course, you've got the standard width and height. Make it bigger or smaller, anchors to move it, or X and Y coordinates, which you can again click and drag. And frame strata, pretty simple, just leave it as is. I have no idea what the heck that is. So that's progress texture. It's interesting, but I haven't really used it yet, because I prefer having the exact timers so I know when I need to refresh different things like buffs and debuffs. And the next one is actually progress bar. I'm going to skip down here. And progress bar is kind of like reminiscent of DBM timers or big wigs if you use that add-on instead. And it just counts down, and of course you can make it fill up as well. So you can change things like the bar texture to something you like better, maybe like frost or something, so now it looks kind of cool. You can change the text just like in text weak auras, and they're the same ones. You've got P for progress, which is remaining time, so buff times, debuff times, cooldown timers, whatever you decide to choose as your trigger. T for the total duration of that, whatever you're tracking. But again, not that useful to me, but if you like that, you can use it. And for the name right now, and which is being used right now, so the name will show up over here on the left. I for an icon, so if I change it to I, it would now be the icon of whatever spell I'm looking at. And then S for stacks, so just how many stacks of the buff I'm using. Or you can just type in whatever you like. You don't have to use these things, but those are what will change depending on what's going on. So it's left and right text, remaining time precision, choose how many decimal points you like. I haven't played with dynamics, so I don't know what that does exactly. You can rotate the text a little bit differently if you like. You can orient it differently as well, top to bottom to top, left to right, right to left, whatever you like. And then of course you can inverse it to, again, fill up the bar rather than draining it out if you prefer. And then you can pick if you want the icon or not. You see on the right there's a little icon there. Right now it's blank because I don't know what we're tracking. And you can choose your own icon if you like. So click on the choose button, type in a word, and stuff will show up that you can choose from. But normally you want it on auto. And then you can move where the icon is, of course, desaturate it, change the color on it a bit, and then you can zoom in on it. And you can change the bar as well, the color of the first thing that is draining or going up, filling up, and the background, which is whatever is behind that bar. So those are pretty much your options. You can mess with the left and right text, of course, color, font size, font type, font flags. I don't know. I don't even know. So you can mess around with that, customize it as much as you want, stacks, and then the width and height of the bar itself, as well as the anchor. And of course, you can click and drag or type in X or Y coordinates to move it around. And then frame shadow again, I leave alone. Now, the next one we're going to do, just look at the last weak ores option we have. And that's actually going to be the model. Now, model is pretty cool, although I don't really find a huge use for it. You can actually pick 3D models of different World of Warcraft characters, like people, so like races. You can pick creatures, like you can see Lich King is up here right now. Maybe we'll take Alikir or Alexstrasza or something. Let's take Alexstrasza, why not? So we got the dragon, the lady version, like whatever you like. And then you can change the X and Y to move her like within the frame here. Left and right, up and down for Y, and then Z is zoom, so you just kind of zoom in or not. And you pick that, and you have some. So these are the same options you just saw: Z, Y, Z, X, and Y. You can animate it so that they do animations, and they have different sequences, so you can pick from those, whatever they are. Here she's flying. First one she's like roaring, and she's freaking out right now. So I'll go ahead and stop that. But you have things like that. You can rotate it around, kind of like spinning it around, and just mess around with stuff like that. You can create borders and all sorts of options open up with that for like the style, color, offsets, and size. And then you have this width and height of the box itself. And of course the anchor you can use to move, or you can click and drag it around, or just type in X and Y coordinates. Again, frame strata, same thing, just leave it alone, as far as I know, because I haven't really played with it. So that's model. It's pretty cool. Very distracting though for me, so I haven't really played with that at all because I just don't find it that useful. So those are actually all the weak aura types you have. Now there are 2 more options you can pick, but they're not actually unique weak auras on their own. What they do is they group up multiple weak auras that you've created and put under this umbrella, and it allows you to move and edit them as a group. Now I don't know too much about these because I haven't tried them really at all, but group, I know you can just like click and drag, for example, the entire group of weak auras, and I'm pretty certain you can edit them as a group as well. So this is really useful if you're trying to create a set of weak auras, and if you just want to change some universal things about multiple weak auras without having to go through like 15 different individual ones, which can be a pain. It's also very helpful if you're trying to create like a class set of weak auras to use group or dynamic group, so that you can just link them one big weak aura and they just copy it and they get everything, which is really, really cool. Dynamic group is just the same as group, but some weak auras actually, or the group itself can move the positioning of like the weak auras depending on what's going on, which is sounds really cool. I haven't played with it personally, so I won't try to like BS around how it works, but these are cool things you can play with. And if you click them, it creates this thing. And then after that, you have to create more weak auras and add them to this group. So it's a little different than the other ones because it's not actually weak auras itself. You're not creating new weak auras from it. So those are all the options. I hope that's been pretty helpful just to kind of see where you can customize a bunch of stuff. Now, I will go ahead and show you guys how to create some weak auras so you have actual examples. So let's start with texture. Let's make a texture for a buff. So click on texture and we'll call it, let's pick Survival Instincts for this one. Big cooldown, pretty cool. And so, okay, I spelled it wrong. Let's just ignore that. But you name it whatever you want, and then let's pick an aura for it. I like power auras, so I'm going to use power auras, and we'll pick this one. Why not? It's pretty cool. Say okay. Now, maybe I want the color to be different. I don't know. We could pick magenta. And I like it full size, so I just uncheck allow full rotation. Again, it's totally up to you if you want to mess around with it. Maybe you want to make it like this angle or something. But I like that. And then I'll leave the width and height. I like this is pretty simple. And I like it centered around me. So I'll leave the coordinates where they are. Now I need to pick a trigger. Now, this is for Survival Instincts, which again I've misspelled, but I'll just click Apply Template. And in this case, let's say I want to know how long the buff is on me. So I want to know when Survival Instincts activates and when it drops off of me. So I'm going to go through the buffs rather than the cooldowns, because the cooldowns would show me when it's coming off of cooldown. So buffs, scroll down, and Survival Instincts is right here, so we'll click that. replace the trigger because I'm not going to add any more triggers. No need to have more. And then that's it. So now already it works. It should work. So when I pop Survival Instincts, it will show this while it's active, and then when it's gone, it will disappear. Now I could set loads in if I wanted to make it only for my druid, or only my druid on this realm, or only in guardian spec, so on and so forth. Now you see if I pick a different specialization that I'm not right now, it will disappear from the loaded side of the screen over here. If I take it off, it comes back. Actions, I'm not really hot on these, so I don't really use these, but again, you would add anything here, and animations, and then that's it. So now you've created your own weak core. It's very, very simple, and it should work. Now, before I test it out, I'm actually going to make one more, because I do like to have text with my indicators, generally, if there's a timer on it. And so I'll go ahead and create new, so click new up here, click on text, and what I'm interested in right now is the time left on Survival Instinct, so I will leave it as the %P. Now I'll call this, I don't know, Survival Instincts Timer, and I spelled it correctly this time. Now I do like to make them about the same color, so I'll guess, what was it about? I'll eyeball it like magenta-ish here. And then, if I want to position it, so I do want to move it, I don't want to have it right on top of me. I want to be able to see this, but it doesn't load if I click on this. So what you do is you click on this little view button, and it allows you to toggle the visibility, like it'll show it if you want it to. And there's an option up here at the top of loaded and not loaded to show or hide all of the weak auras that are under that section. So for now we'll just have this one, and so now I know, oh, I can click and drag this up, or I could type in coordinates. So you can either click and drag and kind of eyeball where you want it, or if you want to be really precise, you can pick coordinates if you know where you want it to be. Now here maybe I'll do like 70, that's pretty typical for me. And then that's pretty much it for the display part. Now we have to pick a trigger. Now make sure you always pick a trigger. This is really important, otherwise it's never going to activate, which is very awkward. So again, this is Survival Instincts, almost call it Shield Wall, but under buffs, because I'm interested in how long do I have before the buff wears off of me. So scroll down again, click on Survival Instincts, and then replace triggers. So that's that, and it should work. Now again, you could do load actions and animations if you need to, but if not, you're good to go. So now, if I test this and I pop Survival Instincts, I should get this aura, this cool little icon, and I should get a timer showing me how much time I have left on the buff. So let's test it out. Click on Survival Instincts, and there we go. I've got the aura, and it's got 4 seconds, 3, 2, 1, and then when it's gone, it disappears. Now the icon that pops up is another add-on, but don't worry about that too much. So those are how you make textures and text, and they go really well together if you need a timer, for example. And I don't always, like with Galactic Guardian or Guardian of Elune, I don't keep a timer because I don't think I need it, but it is very useful together if you do want to track specific times. Now we'll go ahead and move on to making icons. Now icons I like to use for cooldowns, so like big cooldowns or short cooldowns, whatever I need. And so first what I normally need is the timer left, so I like to change this to the text to %P, but sometimes I do need both. So in this case, I'll show you, you can do both in just a line. You don't have to do a space either, but I like to have a space because it looks better. Or you can even do stuff in between just to separate it more visually for yourself. Normally I just do one space, but again, you can do commas, lines, whatever you like. I leave it on automatic icon, I leave the icon as is. And what I do is, if I'm doing two things, I like to size my icons down. So I scroll down here and I change the width and height, and I personally use 32, so it's about half of what it is in my videos on my characters. Because of that, you see the text kind of goes outside the box, so I changed the size of the text down to 10, and now it fits, just barely. Then of course you can move it however you like, you can type, you can click and drag, and this case I'll just click and drag it, it looks good, I don't know, here. And then of course, we need to pick an actual trigger, so it knows what it's looking for. So we go to trigger here, we'll apply a template, and on this time I'm interested in the cooldown, and we'll use Survival Instincts again, because why not? And this is going to show the cooldown remaining rather than how long it's active. So I'll click on Survival Instincts, found it down here, replace trigger, and then this is all ready. And then of course you could do load, actions, animations, whatever. Right now I don't really need it. And let me just name this Survival Instincts Cooldown, CD. And so it should work right now, and you see it has the automatic icon already because it says, okay, we're tracking this spell, so we'll just use that icon. So if we test it, actually just exiting out, you can see it's already working because it's on cooldown Survival Instincts. And it's got the timer on the left, so I got 1 minute and 33 seconds before it comes back off cooldown. But it also shows me how many stacks I have because Survival Instincts has 2 charges. So then I know, do I have one available right now? Or, is it completely gone? So if I click it again, you'll see that the one disappears, the cooldown's still running, and then I have, of course, the other weak ores that we just made. So those are the examples of weak ores that I often use, the textures, text, and icons. Now, I do want to mention just how to and show how you can create these if you cannot find what you're looking for in the apply template section. So I'll start with just buffs and debuffs here, and I'll pick perhaps icon here. I've made a new icon. Now, if you need a buff and you can't find it in here for some reason, you just choose aura or buff or debuff, and then you pick who's it from. So do you want it to be a buff on yourself? Do you want it to maybe be your target? Say we'll do a debuff on the target. And we'll pick a debuff because that's what we want. We'll make it your own only because that's you don't care about other people's buffs. And let's track Thrash, the debuff. So we'll call it Thrash. And so maybe you see there's 37 matches, so maybe we need to go look up the spell ID or something. So you see it's a little more complicated because you might not be able to find the exact spell you're looking for, but this is how you would do it. You could find the ID name through like Wowhead or something, or maybe pick, let's say, what's another debuff, like Moonfire. So you see there's still a bunch of matches. So you do, if possible, want to go through apply template, but if you can't find it, this is how you would do it. So an icon that shows up when you have Moonfire on your target that you've casted, and it will show up. So that's how you do buffs and debuffs if you can't find it. Now, what if you're looking for a cooldown on a spell? Let's take Frenzied Regeneration, for example. So you go to apply template, you're like, oh, hey, let's see, buffs. Oh, it's here. Well, wait, I don't want the buff timer. I don't want to know how long the 3-second haunt is on me. I want to know when it's off cooldown. So you go and you check it out. You're like, cooldowns, Frenzied Regeneration. I don't see it because it's not here. So what you're going to have to do instead is do it yourself. Now for cooldowns, I pick, instead of aura, I pick status. And then under this little drop-down menu, you'll take the cooldown progress for spells. And then you'll type in the name. Frenzied Regeneration. And then, of course, you could use a spell ID too if you find that. And then it's pretty much set. I leave it on cooldown so that it shows up this week, or this icon will pop up when I get to, when it goes on cooldown, Frenzied Regeneration. And if I go back to the display, I can choose to make the text say the timer left, so how much time is left on Frenzied Regen. And I could also maybe, if I'm curious, I could add stacks in as well. So similar to how you did it, or how I did the other icon, but this way you can do spells that are even not in the apply template section. So you can create your own if for some reason Weak Ores has not added it in. So now I want to go over one kind of special last case that I came across when I was making my Warlock video, and it's how do you track the duration of a spell when there's no buff or debuff that's more obvious to kind of look at. In this case, I'm talking about Grimoire of Service, which I did recommend in my videos. And for some people, if you really want to, you can track when your pet goes away, that extra pet that you summon. So if that's important to you, then this is how you'll do it. So you'll click on the type and go down to events rather than status. And then under this new drop-down menu, you'll pick combat log. Under message suffix, go through cast success, because you want to know when you succeeded in actually casting the spell rather than when you're trying to cast it. You'll make sure that it's from you, so it's your own spell. And I've already typed in, or you should type in the name here, and the name of the spell is Grimoire Fell Hunter. And you'll see this if you're on your Warlock, for example. You can look at that spell. But just type in the spell name or spell ID, whichever you prefer. And then here, you choose how long does it take before this weak aura disappears. And you want to make that whatever length that the spell lasts, that the pet lasts in this case. So I think it's like 20 or 24 seconds. So you just look at that, look at the tooltip. And so this will make it pop up Now, the display I don't really care for, so I just want the icon. And so I guess it defaults to S here. But this way, you cast a spell, and as soon as you successfully summon your Fell Hunter in this case, it will keep this icon up, and then it will let you, once it disappears, it's letting you know, hey, your pet is gone now. So that's just the last case there that you could use it for, that I have used it for, and I just wanted to show you guys in case you were curious about that. So that's pretty much it. I hope some of these examples and just going through all the options was helpful to you guys. If you liked the video, feel free to hit it with a like. Feel free to leave comments, ask questions in the comment section. I may not know the answers to all your weak auras inquiries, so just keep that in mind, but I will do my best to answer what I can. Now, if you'd like to see more videos that I create in the future, feel free to subscribe to the channel. If you want to support the channel, that is really, really appreciated and really helpful. And thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Cheers.